Have you ever felt that strange stirring deep inside of you, the kind of whisper that doesn't come from your own mind, but feels like a voice echoing from eternity? That quiet tug that says, "You were made for more than this." Maybe you've dismissed it before. Maybe you thought it was just imagination, or maybe fear told you that you're not qualified, not holy enough, not ready. But what if I told you that what you've been sensing is a prophetic calling on your life? What if every moment of restlessness, every time you felt out of place in the world, was really the voice of God trying to wake you up? From the very beginning, God has been calling ordinary people to step into extraordinary assignments. Jeremiah was only a youth when God spoke over him, saying, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you before you were born. I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." Think about that. Before you even took your first breath, before you ever spoke your first word, God had already woven a prophetic assignment into the fabric of your being. That means you are not here by accident. Your life is not random. There is something stamped onto your spirit that carries divine significance. But let's be honest, when you hear the word prophet, maybe you picture a mysterious man with a long beard standing in the wilderness, shouting judgment to a crowd. And while that image has some truth, the prophetic calling is not limited to ancient voices. The prophetic calling is alive, breathing, moving through you right now. It's not just about predicting the future. It's about becoming a living mouthpiece of God, carrying His heart into your relationships, your workplace, your family, your city. The prophetic is less about standing on a mountain declaring visions, and more about living in such alignment with God's Spirit that your very words, your very presence, shift the atmosphere around you. And here's where it gets real. You don't need to be standing on a stage or wearing a robe to live prophetically. Sometimes your prophetic calling looks like speaking hope into a friend who's ready to give up. Sometimes it looks like refusing to compromise in a corrupt workplace, choosing integrity when everyone else is bending the truth. Sometimes it looks like carrying a vision for justice, mercy, creativity, or healing that pushes against the current of culture. The prophetic calling is not about titles. It's about obedience. It's about tuning your heart to God's voice and then having the courage to echo it in a world full of noise. Look at Moses. When God called him from the burning bush, he argued. He said, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh?" He was terrified, insecure, convinced he didn't have the voice for the assignment. And yet, God replied, "I will be with you." That's the essence of your prophetic calling. It's not that you're the most talented, or the loudest, or the most impressive. It's that God has chosen to put His presence inside you, and His presence qualifies you in ways no human resume ever could. So when you feel the stirring, when you sense the weight of something greater pressing on your heart, don't ignore it. That's heaven's fingerprint on your spirit. That's the eternal calling breaking into your ordinary routine. And the truth is, the world is waiting for you to step into it. Because your prophetic voice might be the exact sound someone else needs to survive. Your obedience could be the answer to someone else's prayer. Think about Samuel, a boy lying down in the temple, still learning how to hear God's voice. The scriptures say the word of the Lord was rare in those days. Visions were not widespread. And yet in the stillness of the night, the voice of God called out to him, "Samuel, Samuel." At first, he thought it was Eli, the old priest. 3 times he ran to Eli, confused, unsure, until finally Eli realized what was happening. He told Samuel, "If he calls you again, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" That moment changed everything. Samuel's prophetic journey began not with a loud announcement, not with thunder and fire, but with quiet recognition. And that's often how it happens for you. The prophetic calling doesn't always break in with fireworks. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it stirs in your sleep, or nudges you in the middle of an ordinary day. The real question is not whether God is calling you. Already know He is, but whether you're willing to say, "Speak, Lord, I'm listening." And here's the beauty when you begin to live prophetically. It reshapes how you see everything. That coworker who annoys you is no longer just a problem. They become a soul. God wants to reach through your patience. That dream you've buried for years suddenly reawakens because God is showing you. It wasn't just ambition, it was a seed He planted to bless others. That fear you've carried starts to lose its grip because you realize your voice isn't just your own. You carry the voice of the Spirit. History itself has been marked by men and women who dared to embrace their prophetic assignments. Think about Martin Luther King Jr., standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, declaring, "I have a dream." Those words weren't just a political statement. They carried the prophetic weight of heaven's justice echoing through a broken land. Or think about Mother Teresa walking the slums of Calcutta, hearing God's whisper in the cries of the dying. Her prophetic calling wasn't to stand behind a pulpit, but to hold the forgotten and remind them of their dignity. You see, prophecy is not about predicting dates or decoding mysteries. It's about carrying God's heart into your moment. It's about embodying His vision when the world has lost sight of it. And that means your calling might not look like anyone else's. For some, it will mean speaking truth in a boardroom. For others, it will mean writing music that pierces the heart. For others still, it will mean standing beside someone who thinks they've been abandoned and saying, "You are not alone." The Bible reminds us in Revelation that the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. That means every time you bear witness to who He is, every time you carry His story into your life, you are moving in your prophetic design. It's not just about predicting the future, it's about revealing Christ in the present. But here's the challenge. The prophetic calling always comes with resistance. Just like Jeremiah, you will face voices that say, "You're too young, too old, too broken, too unqualified." Just like Moses, you will face your own insecurities screaming, "I can't do this." Just like Elijah, you may even find yourself under a broom tree, exhausted, asking God to take your life because the burden feels too heavy. And yet, over and over, God answers with the same truth, "I am with you." And that changes everything. Because if God is with you, you cannot fail. Yes, you may stumble. Yes, you may face rejection, misunderstanding, even persecution. But your calling is not defined by applause, it's defined by obedience. It's not about how many follow you, it's about whether you are following Him. So here's the question you need to wrestle with right now. Are you willing to live as a prophetic voice in your generation? Are you willing to stop shrinking back and start leaning in to the whisper of God that's been chasing you for years? Because I promise you, the moment you say yes, the ordinary will no longer feel ordinary. Every conversation will carry eternal weight. Every decision will ripple with purpose. Every step will become a declaration. I am here, I am chosen, and I will not be silent. When you carry a prophetic calling, you begin to notice that your life is never really normal. The things that others can ignore will keep you awake at night. The injustices others scroll past will burn in your spirit. The dreams people tell you to bury will not die inside of you, no matter how hard you try to silence them. That's because a prophetic calling will not let you stay comfortable. It pushes you, stretches you, and sometimes even breaks you so that God can flow through you in a way that ordinary ambition never could. Think of Nehemiah. He wasn't a priest or a preacher. He was a cupbearer to the king, just a servant in the palace. And yet, when he heard that the walls of Jerusalem were in ruins, he wept. He fasted. He prayed. His heart broke in a way that others' hearts didn't. That's the mark of a prophetic calling, when your spirit aches for what God aches for. Nehemiah could have stayed in the comfort of the palace, sipping wine and living safe, but instead he carried the burden of God's vision and rebuilt a city. That's the kind of fire God puts in you when He calls you. And here's the truth: you've felt that fire before. Maybe it came when you saw someone suffering and you couldn't walk away. Maybe it came when you had an idea that nobody else believed in, but you couldn't let it go. Maybe it came when you realized that no one was speaking the truth out loud and you knew you had to be the one. That's not coincidence. That's calling. That's God's way of saying, I've placed something in you that cannot stay silent. But I need to warn you, walking in your prophetic calling will cost you. It will cost you popularity, because not everyone wants to hear God's truth. It will cost you comfort, because obedience rarely feels easy. It may even cost you relationships, because some people would rather you stay small than rise into who you were made to be. Jesus Himself said, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his own town, among his relatives, and in his own home." So don't be surprised if those closest to you struggle to recognize what God has placed on your life. Sometimes the very people who know your past will doubt your future. But take courage, because you are not walking alone. Every prophet, every voice God has raised up has walked this same path. Elijah stood alone on Mount Carmel against hundreds of false prophets. Esther risked her life to step before the king. John the Baptist cried out in the wilderness, preparing the way for the Lord. And every one of them discovered this: when you carry God's word, even if you stand alone, you are never truly alone. Now let's bring this closer to your life today. Imagine what it would look like if you stopped waiting for someone else to step up and realized the mantle has already been laid on your shoulders. Imagine if you believed that your words spoken in love and courage could shift the trajectory of your family. Imagine if you stopped doubting and started declaring God's promises over your own life, your workplace, your city. That's what it means to step into your prophetic calling, not waiting for permission, not waiting for perfection, but moving forward because God has already said yes over you. And here's something I've learned. Your prophetic voice doesn't always sound like thunder. Sometimes it sounds like kindness in a world that's grown cold. Sometimes it sounds like forgiveness when bitterness feels easier. Sometimes it sounds like a song that stirs hearts awake, or a painting that whispers heaven's beauty into a dark place. The prophetic calling isn't confined to pulpits and platforms. It flows through every expression of your life when you surrender it to God. You may not realize it yet, but someone is waiting for your obedience. Someone is waiting for your story. Someone's breakthrough is tied to your yes. Because prophecy is not just about what you say, it's about who you are when you live in full alignment with the Spirit of God. There will come a moment when you have to decide, will you keep living as though your life is random, or will you rise and step into the prophetic assignment God has placed on you? You cannot wait forever. You cannot keep saying, one day, when I'm ready, when I'm older, when I have more money, more knowledge, more confidence. The truth is, you will never feel ready. Moses didn't feel ready. Jeremiah didn't feel ready. Gideon didn't feel ready. None of them had all the answers, but what they did have was a yes. And that yes changed history. So right now, what's holding you back from saying yes? Is it fear of failure? God already knows your weaknesses, and still, He chose you. Is it fear of rejection? Remember, Jesus Himself was despised and rejected, yet His voice still shook the world. Is it doubt that you could ever be enough? Hear this: Christ in you is more than enough. Your calling isn't about your perfection, it's about your surrender. Picture this: a world where you actually believe you carry God's voice. Imagine the power of that. You walking into a room not in arrogance, but in quiet authority, knowing that heaven has entrusted you with a word, a vision, a fire that can't be extinguished. Imagine speaking life into someone who's ready to quit and watching their eyes light up with hope. Imagine choosing obedience in a small thing today and realizing years later that it altered the course of generations. That is the weight of your prophetic calling. And make no mistake, the world desperately needs it. Look around: confusion, division, despair. People are searching for meaning, for truth, for hope that doesn't fade. And while the world shouts 1,000 empty promises, God has chosen you to carry His word. Your voice may not reach millions, but it may reach the one. And for that one, it could mean everything. This is why you can't stay silent. This is why you can't keep living small. Because silence is easy, comfort is easy, but they will rob you of the fire God placed in your bones. Jeremiah said, "His word is in my heart, like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot." That's what it feels like when you carry a prophetic calling. You try to bury it, but it keeps burning, pushing, breaking out. And the only way to find peace is to let it flow. So let this be the moment you stop running. Let this be the moment you stop doubting. Let this be the moment you say, "Lord, here I am. Use me." And don't wait for the perfect opportunity. Don't wait for a platform. Don't wait for everyone's approval. Start right where you are. Speak life in your home. Pray over your city. Declare truth in your circle. Write the vision. Sing the song. Paint the picture. Live the message. That's what the prophetic calling looks like. Not someday, not somewhere else, but here and now. And as you walk it out, remember this: you are not just a person with dreams and struggles. You are a chosen vessel. You are heaven's answer to a problem on earth. You are God's messenger in a time when the world needs voices of clarity, compassion, and courage. Your life is not a mistake. Your voice is not meaningless. Your calling is not optional. It is essential. So what will you do? Will you keep ignoring the whisper, or will you lean in and say yes? Will you keep silencing the fire, or will you let it roar? The choice is yours, but the world is waiting. If this message has stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Take a moment right now to reflect. Ask God, what are you calling me to? Where do you want me to speak? Who needs to hear my voice? And then take one step, just one step. Because the prophetic calling isn't about giant leaps. It's about daily obedience, day after day, until your whole life becomes a living prophecy. And before you go, I want to leave you with this: the same God who called Jeremiah, the same God who raised up Esther, the same God who spoke to Samuel in the night, that God is calling you. And His call is not faint. His call is not fragile. His call is eternal, and it has your name on it. So rise up, step out, live prophetically. The world is waiting for your yes. If this message spoke to you, I invite you, share it with someone who needs encouragement. Subscribe so you don't miss the next word. And take a moment to reflect, to write down what you sense God stirring in you. Because your prophetic journey doesn't start tomorrow. It starts right now.